guys, and welcome to the latest episode of our transaction podcast, where I'm joined by the wonderful Annie Snell. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone, Annie?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I'm Annie Snell. I'm a Treasury Manager, currently working at Renewable Energy Investment Platform, RPC in London, and been in the finance industry for quite a few decades. So, yeah, but in a really great place now.
Perfect. And I suppose for you, how did you get to become a Treasury Manager? So what's your career look like? How have you climbed the ladder to where you are today?
So to be honest, the transition into Treasury was a bit of a leap of faith. I'd been working for JD Wetherspoon for about 10, 15 years, various roles across finance. And as typically happens in that size of company, various elements of the Treasury role were being done in different areas of the business.
Yeah.
So, you had one of the teams doing cash flow forecasting, someone else looking after the relationship with the bank. And they'd just reached a size where they really wanted to bring all of that together under one umbrella. So it was a brand new position. And that's the sort of trend that I've followed since, is actually creating the Treasury function. So
yeah,
it was great opportunity because I was working in an established PLC, already had very good processes and procedures in place elsewhere in finance, but I really had a blank canvas to sort of create this new role, a new team. And spent 5 years. That role migrated quite a bit over those 5 years and sort of transitioned. And then joined Bioproducts Laboratory, pharmaceutical company, to do something very similar, albeit very different company, very different remit, different size. So that was great, very different opportunity. But again, sort of starting from scratch, creating the Treasury function, sort of building the team. And after they were acquired, I just moved earlier on this year to RPC, and again doing very much the same. And that's the great thing. The role in Treasury Manager can take so many different forms. Really depends on the company, the size of the company, the way that it's structured. So although it's very much still doing the same role, that role is very different, and has been very different in the three organizations. So and working in an amazing industry, fascinating industry now.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose for you, sort of in your own words, if you had to describe Treasury, someone who's never worked in finance, how would you describe it?
Wow. Probably not in one word. It's the great thing about Treasury is it's tangible, it's real. Not to suggest that other areas of finance are made up, but it's the bank balance is the bank balance. Your financial position is as it is. That's one of the things I love about it. But basically, Treasury is at the core of the business. Managing the cash, managing those funding relationships, managing those sort of financial exposures. And it's great because you do get to interact with so many areas of the business. But I guess, if you had to summarize it, it's looking after the financial assets of the business.
Oh, perfect. And I suppose for you, for somebody who's just starting out in Treasury, what sort of opportunities are there available to them, whether it be qualification wise, sort of climbing the ladder?
So qualification wise, I'm a member of the ACT, the Association of Corporate Treasurers. Great thing about that association is that they've got different levels of qualification, and each one of those levels is sort of standalone. It's very well respected in the industry, but they're still small enough that if you've got a question, there's a human being at the end of a phone. So great organization, and they do a lot of good publications, but there are 4 different levels of qualification that you can reach. And the basic sort of entry level doesn't require any previous academic qualifications at all. So it's a real kind of nuts and bolts. Here are the basics. So it could equally suit a school leaver, or someone coming into finance, or someone that's worked in finance, maybe worked in AP or AR previously, and and just sort of wants to broaden their career. But you can also do what I did. I started the sort of second level up because I was already a qualified accountant. So I started with the certificate in Treasury, and then used that to gain access to get my AMCT qualification, which is the Treasury diploma. So yeah, there's lots of opportunity to study. And like I said, those qualifications are really well recognised. And I mean, really, the career opportunities in Treasury are sort of endless. More and more companies, I think, are engaging Treasury specialists. Companies just becoming so much more global, exposed to a lot more sort of FX and risk. They're sort of identifying that they need more sort of specialist people, specifically looking at sort of Treasury operations. So honestly, I think the career opportunities are really going to sort of expand in the future. And it's something that to some degree every company needs, whether that's incorporated into another role or whether it's an entire Treasury team. It's always going to be a well-respected area of finance.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of being in Treasury is quite a specialist skill within finance, isn't it? Like you're saying, particularly as you get into the bigger businesses where Treasury is a standalone sort of function within a busy finance team. We're definitely seeing that businesses now, like you say, are looking for people with that specialist skill set, whether it's like yourself to come in and set up a Treasury function from scratch, or someone who can come in and work under a Treasury manager who's already there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the scope of Treasury can be so different from company to company. So yeah, you could be, as I've been, the Treasury manager, the Treasury person in an organisation. But yeah, equally joining a bigger organisation, you might be, purely working in a region or an area. It could be FX management or, cash flow. So yeah, a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose I only sort of touched on it a little bit earlier, but sort of for you, why is Treasury so important to a business?
I mean, mainly because cash is so important. Cash is fundamental. One of the core sort of tasks of the Treasury team really is making sure that you have got the right cash in the right currency available in the right place and the right time. And most companies will deal in more than one currency. A lot of companies have got subsidiaries abroad. So it does sort of touch almost every company in some way, but it's absolutely critical to make sure that you've got cash available as you need it to meet the company's obligations. And not only that sort of instant liquidity, but you need to be looking to see if you've got the right currencies and the right funding available 12 months down the line, 5 years down the line. Nobody wants to be borrowing money when you're desperate for money. You want to have that picture as far ahead as you can. So yeah, it's very, very core to every company.
Yeah, perfect. And I suppose at the moment, sort of what are the biggest challenges facing Treasury teams?
So I guess really, I mean, looking at the economics at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. Whether the interest rate increases are going to sufficiently control inflation, and the impact on the wage increases. So it's still a little bit uncertain what the Bank of England will be doing. There are rumours of another couple of rises. Obviously, if the cost of borrowing keeps increasing, that has a direct impact on companies. It has a direct impact on a lot of the currency pairs. So yeah, we're in a quite an interesting sort of economic state at the moment.
Definitely.
And
yeah, 100%. I think we've all seen it, haven't we? The cost of borrowing going up and everything we see in the news, which at the moment seems quite doom and gloom, but we can hope that things start to improve anyway.
That's the indication. It should be. Should be a
Fingers
bit
crossed.
better controlled in the future.
Yeah, we can hope. And I suppose sort of looking into the future, say sort of 5 or 10 years down the line, I suppose what does the future of Treasury look like? Is there going to be sort of more automation coming into the function, or sort of what are your thoughts on that side of it?
I would imagine so. As in most roles, technology plays a really important role. I mean, us accountants do love our Excel spreadsheets, but yeah, investing in the technology is essential. Just to take away those repetitive tasks, the tasks that are much more prone to error. And what that does is it just frees up the team to add the value, to do the things that a computer can't do. I know it does
Yeah,
seem in a lot of areas like AI could pretty much replace all of us. But it's those human interactions, and it's a person's ability to get to grips with a company and to understand what the priorities of that company are, what they're trying to achieve, and sort of translate that into in financial terms. So hopefully we never get to a point where that's being replaced, but I mean, certainly, yeah, when it comes to automation of your cash flow and your banking processes, that's definitely the way forward.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And we're seeing it across the board, and particularly in sort of like an AP function, where a lot of sort of just getting the invoice onto the system, for example, is now being done by computers. And I suppose the flip side of
Yeah.
that is then the team members that you've got in those roles, then roles aren't necessarily disappearing. If anything, they're just being upskilled more. So you do go more down the business partnering route and kind of
Yeah.
value that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives the staff opportunity. There are probably some people that do like that sort of data entry side,
Yeah,
but there will always be opportunity for people, doing the exception reporting. But yeah, you're right. It frees up people's time to add more value to their roles.
yeah. And it, like I say, it keeps it interesting, doesn't it? For those that are sort of coming up through the ranks, they get to sort of see this kind of technology
Absolutely.
being implemented. And like we said, it is upskilling the role for them.
Yeah.
And I suppose what kind of advice would you give to your younger self, or for somebody who's just starting out in treasury? What sort of advice would you give them if they did want to become the next sort of treasury manager?
It's always a tricky question, this, because if you're in a position where you feel happy and you feel fulfilled and you feel that you've had a good career, would you have wanted to change any of that?
Yeah,
Um, it's I guess I would say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and to admit, actually, I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing here. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you're really going to develop and learn, you have to be prepared to be a bit vulnerable
yeah,
and ask questions, and for people to know that actually you're not confident in something which is sometimes difficult. Also, that's got to be in the right environment. So it's very much up to companies as well, to create environments where it's okay for people,
yeah,
to be authentic and just to say, actually, I don't understand that. I need some more time here. So it's something I feel very, very strongly about as a more mature person in finance. That we've got young people coming into businesses all the time, and you've got a real responsibility to be a role model to those
yeah,
people. Unfortunately, when I started out in the world of work, it was very much you need to be the last person out of the office, and
yeah,
there was some unhealthy cultures in a lot of
yeah,
offices which needed to change. But yeah, I'd basically just say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're not going to get it right first time.
yeah,
And also, I've been very lucky. I've worked for some amazing companies, and working for JD Wetherspoon was one of the best things I did with my career, because they have so many opportunities there for you to grow and develop and move around finance, and which is exactly what I did.
yeah,
Um, but there's also a little bit of a temptation to then maybe not push yourself enough. So just be wary of that, I would say, at the early stages of your career. that in some ways you're better off actually moving companies maybe every 5 years to get that completely different experience. It's very tempting when you work for a good company that's very into developing their staff to sort of stay there forever. But it's, sometimes you do need to move just to see a completely different way of working.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good advice there as well, because we do sort of live in a society where people don't necessarily want to be seen as if they don't know what they're doing. Whereas sometimes you just need to put your hand up, don't you? Kind of go, look, I'm stuck, or mine's gone blank, and then you move on, because people are going to remember. Like if you have made a little mistake, and a lot of the time mistakes can be fixed. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's sort of really important to all of the sort of candidates I speak to, in particular, who are sort of starting off their career, is don't be afraid to stick your hand up, ask for help. There's no shame in it, and if anything, you'll probably find yourself overtaking those who refuse to admit it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great sort of picking your brain on all things treasury and sort of your career and advice and things like that. If anyone sort of got any questions or wants to reach out to you, can they feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's been great. Thanks ever so much, Rob.
That's all right. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. And yeah, anyone who wants to connect with Annie or has got any questions, we'll drop her link in the bio as well.